Now the next thing that we need to cover now is the types of sectional views. So it starts with full section. Now all the examples that we saw so far were full sections. For example, this one, you're cutting it from one end to the other, through and through in a straight line. So that's a full section right here. Then this one is a full section because it goes all the way through the object. When we did the watermelon example, that one is a full section. When we cut through this whole thing, this is a full section. The example that you see over here is a full section. Now just look at the arrows and the cutting plane line. Now when the arrows are pointing in that direction, the section should be drawn on the opposite side, which is right here. Again, this is another example of a full section, and we are going to see and learn how to draw a full section. All we have right now is an isometric view and a top view. So this is what we will be drawing. So we'll call this as full section view. Okay. Now what I am going to do is just erase this part, and then we are together going to draw this. Okay, so first thing, when we have any objects, or if we have a 3D view or if we have a 2D view, we have to make sure that we are able to visualize the object really well. If we don't have a 3D view, then I would advise to sketch an isometric view. Now later on in this class, we'll even learn about this chapter called as isometric views and perspective views, where we are going to learn how to draw this. Okay, so just given right now, all we have is an isometric view of this object, and we have is the top view. I want to do is make a section view going from here. If you can see right through the middle, I'm going to call it C. Okay, so let's project our edges and try to get our view. So if you look in here, in the isometric view, our section is going to be cut right from there. So this is going to be our cutting plane. Okay, so it's important to identify where we want the cutting plane to be, and mostly, as I said before, it will be going through wherever you have circles and holes. That's where you will take it through. And if I put an arrow, this is what we have. Okay, so I just trace the top view, and all I'm seeing on the top part is this, right? Is this surface. So this is what I see on the top surface, and that's what is drawn over here. Now let's project these lines down as to we were just drawing a front view. And once we are done drawing, we are going to make sure that we put in our sectional line. So that way it's easier, because it's always easier to start with a front view and then convert that into a sectional view when you are just beginning to work with sections. Okay, so first thing I'm going to draw is my guidelines or projection lines. So this is one of the lines. This is another line. If I were to draw a front view, this is where I'll be having the hidden line for the circle, and this is again where I need one line. Okay, so the object height, I'm going to start right from the top. This is the top level, which is this line right here. Then I'm going to give it a thickness which is from here to here, which is this right here. And then we have a cylinder. The cylinder starts right there. And if you would see in the top view, we would have like a hidden line going like that, right? That's where our cylinder ends. So the height of the cylinder, this one, I'm gonna take it at 1, 2, and 3. And how far is that going? It's going up till there, right? So if I want to darken my object lines for my front, as the top part is going all the way, and this goes down like that. This is going to go from here till here. The cylinder is going to go from here all the way down. Okay, this is going to be a solid part, solid. Okay, now if you look, we are looking this way. Okay, so we got the cylinder, which is right here. We got the top part. Now if you see, this thing is going a little bit inside. Why? Because it's a curved surface. Okay, this is where it starts, so I'm gonna stop right there. So this is our front view right now, but I'm interested in converting this front view into a sectional view. What more I could show in the front view is these hidden lines. I could show that as a hidden line, but I don't want to do that right now, because why? I'm making a section view. So when I start from here, I see this edge, which is this, then I see this surface, if you can see it over here, which is the same as that surface. So I will be drawing a solid line from here to here. Now, am I cutting through that surface? I'm not. So I'm not going to hatch this surface. I'm going to leave it as it is. Now, from here, I go all the way up till here, which is the circle, which line is right here. Okay. And then from here, I start cutting the top surface and the part of the hidden cylinder underneath. So the top surface is right here, from here till here, which is up till here. So I'm going to make it another solid line right there. Now this is the cylinder from here to here, which I'm going to cut, which is going to be in a hatch, which is right here. Okay. And if you see that this thing is going all the way inside this top part, so I'll have to extend even this all the way up. Okay, so now it might be getting a little confusing. So what I am going to do is erase some guidelines. Okay, Okay, now when I'm cutting from here, am I going to see this line? No, because unless it was a front view, I won't be able to see that line. So I'm just going to erase that. Am I going to see this line? This whole thing is one piece. If you see, this thing goes up here and connects to the top piece. So would I be seeing that line? No. So I'll be erasing that. Now when I'm going from here to here till the end of this object, I'm looking at this surface in elevation. Okay, so this is an object line that our cutting plane is not cutting through. So I'm not going to hatch this. Am I going to hatch this? I'm not going to hatch this. Again, why? Because I'm looking at this in elevation and this is an object line. Am I going to hatch this? This part is the inside of the cylinder and I'm not cutting through there, so I'm not going to hatch that. So the only part that I'm going to hatch is this. This is the only part I am cutting through in my sectional view. Okay, so if you look at it, that's done. That is my section CC. Does it look right? You always have to cross check because you can always make a mistake. Okay, again, going all the way from here, looking in that direction, I see that surface and I'm not cutting through, so that's this, so that's correct. Not cutting through this cylinder, so I see this line which you see right here, which is from here to here, so that's good. Now the cutting starts right from here, okay, and that's where it starts. It ends right here. So it's cutting through the plate that you see over here, this plate, which is this plate. Then it's cutting through the hidden cylinder which is underneath, which is basically that part. Okay, and that's what we get as an hatch. So I hope you understood how I went about doing this full sectional view. Now let's try doing another full section view. Now what we have over here is this object. If you look in isometric, when you look at the top view, or the front view in this case, this is the front. If you look out the front, then you have so many circles and it gets confusing trying to understand what's going on there. So that's the reason why you will have to give a sectional view. So I have this circle. If you see, this outside circle is this circle, this big one. Then the inside one, this one, is this circle. Now see, it's on a different level. It's popping out. It's a cylinder. There is another circle, which is this one, which is the hole that you see over here. Now you have another hidden line. Now this is somewhere it gets confusing. What is that hidden line for? So unless you give a sectional view, it's going to be tough to explain how that goes. Now this is the sectional view. Again, it's a full section. Okay, we are going to erase this and draw a new one. So to draw a new one, we start with our guidelines, starting from there. And this is where the cylinder ends. This is the smaller cylinder, starts right here. This one ends right here. Okay, and this is the top one, which is right here, which is a hole. Right? So now let's start putting this up. So first thing I need to do is, how far is this top one going in? So I start from right here, a solid line. Okay. And if you look in this 3D view, you will see how I have cut the section. And wherever I cut, I have to put a hatch. So I started right there, then I have this surface. So I'm going to make a light line right there. In fact, I'll make it a little thicker. So I'm starting right here and ending right here. So this, the outside end, I'm going to put it right there. Okay. Now this thing has a certain thickness as well that you see over here. I'm going to give that thickness. Alright. And this cylinder itself has a certain thickness, right? Because if you look over here, there's a hollow, so there has to be a hidden line going like that, and that shows the thickness of this cylinder. Okay, so I'm going to draw that line and another line right here. Same thing on this side, this line and another line right here. Okay, now we have this hole going from here to here, so I'm going to make that line a harder line. And now it's time to look into our hatching. So if I would have a view looking from that side, this plate, even though it looks like right now, it looks like it's solid right here, as in it's covered, but it is really not. Now we don't have that other view to see, so I'm just going to make it hollow. So that's my solid line. That's my solid line. This is another solid line. This solid line is going from here to here. This solid line is going this way. This line is going from here to here. Okay, and there is this again, the solid line. So this is pretty much what my section view looks like. Only thing that's left right now is the hatching part. So I'm going to erase this line so it avoids confusion, and let's start hatching. So now you can visualize the object a lot more better. Now what is this line that you see over here? This line is an elevational line of the object that is not cutting through. Okay, I will even put a center line because that's where I have the hole. And that completes my section view. Now this is a full section. If I see I'm cutting through this, which is this thickness, then I'm going back, which is going back down here. Then I go up where I'm going up here. It looks a little bit longer than what it looks in the view, but that's okay. Then I'm going down again here, which is this part. Now I have a hole here, which is I'm not cutting through. That's why you don't see the hatch going through. But you do see this elevational line and this elevational object line, which is this one and this one. Then again I get to the object where I'm cutting it through, which is right here, so I hatch it up. Now I'm going back again, so I'm going back, cutting through the object which has a certain thickness, and the thickness is this, from here to here, which is from here till that hidden line. And then I'm going back down, which is from here, and that completes my full section. Now if I were to make a half section instead of the full section for the same object, this is how I would have it. Half section. Now if you look over here, I cut the whole object from one end to the other end going through the center. Now sometimes I don't want to do that when the object is symmetrical, like in our case over here. So I will just make a half section rather than doing the full section. Now where does this help me? It basically helps me. How does it help me? It basically helps me because I don't have to draw extra. So I will be taking my section starting from here. If I were to have a full section, I would go all the way here, but I'm not doing that. So I'm just going down. I stop right here, go down, and go that way. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm cutting from here till here. Okay, but now I'm going down, and I have my section going like that. So this part from here till here, I'll be drawing the object in elevation. Okay, so now if you look, I started right there. I cut this object just like we had over here. Only thing, this section is in this direction, but what we have is in the other direction. So I cut through this plate, which is this one, and then I go up, which is I'm going up here. I cut through there, which is where I cut through like half till here, and this is where I stop pretty much, right? That's where I stop, right in the center. So I'm seeing this line and this line, which is part of this and this, just halfway, and I stop right there. And from this side, if you look, I'm just drawing the elevation. So I continue doing the same thing, but I'm not doing any hatching, because what happens is from here, from the center till the end, I'm seeing the object in elevation. So if you're looking in elevation, you can always use your hidden lines. So this thing works when you would like to just show half of your object, because if it's a symmetrical object, you don't want to draw the whole thing and hatch the whole thing. It might take time. Now this is a simple object. The objects get really complicated, and if you're hand drawing, it takes a lot more time. So you would draw just part of it and then draw the rest in elevation. Or sometimes you have an object which is symmetrical, but you want to show it from the sectional point of view as well as an elevational point of view. You could use that. So this section would be called section AA. Now it's extremely important to name your section. If I do not name my section, there can be a confusion on site. For example, the same object can have another section that's going like that, and this is C. But I have not named my section, so that's a big confusion. So that's the reason why you should always make sure that you name your sections and you name it correctly. So this is half section, extremely simple, just like the full section, but only you're doing half. So if I were to draw my watermelon, instead of drawing this whole thing, I would just draw half of it. So basically I would draw just from here till there. So my half section would look something like that. Right, just like a slice of the watermelon. And I will have the seeds right here. Okay, basically cutting that. So that's half section. So now we have already covered the full section, half section. Now let's go to the offset section. An example for the offset section is right here. Sometimes what happens is you will have to make the section going through all the holes, but not all the holes would line up in a straight line. So in that case, what you will have to do is you offset your sectional plane and try to make it go through as many holes as you can. So now if you look in the 3D of the same object, I have the section starting from here, going through this one hole, which is this one. Then I go back, and then I'm going to the second hole. Then I go back, then I go through the third hole, then I go back, go to the fourth hole, and then go back. So it looks a little complicated, but it really isn't, because all you are doing is projecting these lines down. So if I were to draw my section view, I would first start with projecting all the lines down, starting with the outside, then the second one. This is the top part. Okay, I can see I have a base, so I'm going to make a solid line for the base to begin with. This base has a thickness, so I'm going to make a thickness. This is something that's going to be hashed. Then again, this is a solid line, so I'm going to make it solid from here till here. Looks like a little higher, so I can just erase this much. Then I know I'm going to cut through it, so I'm going to see a solid line pretty much all the way. I have a hole over here, so if I project that right from the center going down, this is the center of my hole. So I'm going to make the hole from here till here. Now when I'm cutting through this is the object. The hole I'm not cutting through. It's just I'm passing through the hole, right? So my section would be hatched like that. I'll leave the hole alone. I'll have a center line to show that there is a hole. Now I have this object right here. This object right here that I'm going to cut. So starting from here, which is from here, till this line, if I project that down, it's going to come up till here. So I will have a solid line going from here all the way down. Then this is the opening, just like the hole, but I will have to project it because this is where it stops. So let's project this line down, and I'm going to make this solid. So this part is going to be a hatch, this part is not. Same thing, I leave a little distance from here till we get this, and draw that, and draw this where it ends. I have to make this solid again, and this solid. Okay. Now we know that the base plate and this one is the same material, right? So we are going to erase this. Again, this is the part that we are cutting through. If you can look over here. So we erase this. We erase this. Okay? Now all I need to do is hatch my section. But there's one more thing that I see out here is a circle. So I'm going to project the center of the circle down, and this is where I have the hole. Okay, I'm not cutting through the hole. See, this, I have a hole over here as well. So I'm not cutting through that. I'm not cutting through this hole. So all I need to do now is just continue doing my hatch. So that's the hatch that I have for this object. Last thing I need to do is just put a center line for that hole. Okay. Now just make sure that you did your section correctly. First thing, you started right there, so you cut through the plate from this, from here till here, which is from here till here. Then you left the space open for the hole. That's where it is. Then from the hole till this plate right here, this is where you're going to cut. Then you go up all the way from here till here. Then you're going down back again, there to there. Then you leave a space open for the hole, which is the opening right here. Same thing, you're cutting through the object from here till here. You're going down, you have the hole or the opening, so you have that, and in the middle you have your hole. So this completes the section. We have to do one thing. We have to name the section as section DD. Now what type of a section is this? This is called as the offset section. And the name being offset because our cutting plane is going like, an offset rather than going in a straight line. For the same thing, I could have another offset section, and now I'm going to be looking in this direction. I go up, I'm going through the hole, then I'm going back, I'm going through these two holes now. Then looking in this direction. So I'm going to call this CC. And if I were to make this section, I will be making it right here. Okay, but I'm not going to do that, but I hope you get the idea how to put in offset sections. Now let's go to another section. Now this section is called as revolved section. Now what is a revolved section? Revolved sections are cross sections of an elongated form or object rotated towards the plane of projection to show its shape or contour. So now if you look over here, this is an elongated section and you have a plane. So you take the plane and rotate it, and you rotate it towards the plane of projection. So I have cut it over here, and if you can see, when I rotate it, when I cut it from there, all I see is the I section, right? But the way this revolved section is put on your sheet is this part that you see over here is rotated. (90°). So if I were to draw a section view of this object, which is a revolved section, now again, if you you can take a look, you're looking in this direction. That's why you see this part, you see that part, and you see the center one, which is this one, and the center one. Okay, but wherever you make the cut, you revolved that or rotate that 90° on this elongated section, and that's going to give you a revolved section. Now the second thing that you're going to look is there is a break line over here as well as over here. This break line means that this section is too long to fit in onto that sheet, or you really don't have enough space, and it is the same exact line that goes through all the way. So that's why you can always show it with a broken line. A broken line is typically drawn like that, but there are a few different ways of doing the broken line as well, but this is one of the ways that you could use. So if I were not to draw a broken line, my revolved section would look something like this. Okay, and if I zoom into it, I can erase the stuff. And lastly, obviously, I'll need to hatch it. So same thing over here, I had to hatch my revolved section. Okay, so I hope you understood how we draw the revolved sections. Now we have a couple more left. Next one is called as the aligned section, Now let's see what an aligned section is. Aligned section views are used to display cross sections of existing standard general or broken views that are defined by aligning to a specified portion of the section line. So now, if I were to take a section going from top to bottom, that would be a full section. But as I said before, I want to take a section through as many holes in my object as possible. So in this case, I will be using the aligned section. Now if you look over here, I have a hole over here. And my section line, now my cutting plane line is going like that till the center, and then it goes this way through the hole and that way. So I have a section AA. So while drawing the aligned section, if I try to project my section lines, I'm going to have a problem, and my section is going to be smaller. See, even if I start over here, but I'll have to end over here. The hole which is right here is going to end up somewhere over here. So this size is not going to be the right size. So what I do in this case is I align the circle to my object. So what I do is, if you look at this arrow right here, I'm going to just pretend to move the circle right up there, and so that I can project my lines from end to end. Now another thing that you have to remember in sections is when you have something called as ribs. This is a rib in your drawing. When you have ribs, even though I'm seeing this in elevation, and I might not see the whole complete thing. I might just be able to see something like that instead of going from here to here. So I have to remember that I do not draw the rib like that. I have to draw it completely from where it starts to where it ends, even though I don't see it in my drawing. Okay, so that's the thing you have to remember when you see some ribs in your section. But this example is of the aligned section. All I have to make sure is the hole, I align it with my cutting plane, and then I can easily project it and make my sectional view. So this is the isometric of the same thing. Now if you see, I have aligned my section line with the hole, and if I'm looking that way, I even see the rib, and I even see the rib looking that way, and this is how I draw it, and this completes the aligned section. Now if you want to see another example, I have my object that looks something like that. It goes like this. I have another simple example that looks something like this, and I would like to take a section. So the way I would be taking the section is going to be like that, going through the hole, looking in this direction. But while drawing my section, I will make sure is I am drawing it in a way where I align it to this line. I'm going to align that circle here. I'm going to align that here. And when I want to draw my section, this is going to be my projection lines rather than from here. Okay? And this is where I'll fit my section. So this is the correct way of doing aligned sections. Okay, now we have a couple more sections left and we should be done with our chapter. So what we have left right now is removed sections and broken out sections. So broken out sections, they're really easy. If you look over here, this is an example of a broken out section. Now what you are doing over here is you are just making the section for what you really need to explain. You don't want to do the whole section, you don't want to do the whole hatching, so you just show part of it in hatch. Again, why are we doing this? One of the reasons is to save time hatching, and the other reasons is because we do want to show the rest of the stuff as an elevation, but only part of that object we want to show as a broken out section. For example, if I'm showing a machine part, so just some part of that machine I would like to show as a section, but the rest of it I would like to show as an elevation. So that's where we will be using broken out sections. So if you would like the definition of a broken out section, a section view resulting from an imagined cut that removes a small portion of the exterior part. So this is where we are using a small portion and left out the other part to be shown in elevation. Now let's go to the next one. This is called as a removed section. And the simple reason why this is called as a removed section is we take part of the section and blow it up in scale and just draw that part in detail. Now the reason why we do this is because when you're working on drawings and you're working on a certain scale, now you want to make sure that the object is explained completely in detail. Now, for example, this is an architectural section of a house which shows the framework, it shows the walls, it shows the slab and the foundation. But when I draw on my sheet on quarter scale, I cannot see a lot of details here. So what I am going to do, instead of drawing this whole thing, this whole drawing on a bigger scale because it cannot fit on my sheet, I'm just going to select a part of my object or drawing. I'm going to call it detail A, that you can see over here, and I'm going to blow it up on a different scale. So over here I have doubled the scale from 1/4. I've made it to half the scale. Now when I double the scale, I can draw more in detail and I can be more expressive about what is happening in that area, which I couldn't do in here because I really don't have much space to do the hatching or showing concrete. So this explains better. So this is a removed section. Now if I would like to have another removed section, I could even do that. I'm going to do a hidden kind of line. Now I want to show the contractor what's happening up here where the wall meets the roof, and I'm going to call this as detail B. Okay, or usually the way they have it is it's just going to be shown like that. And when I look on my drawing, I just look for detail B, just like what you have over here, detail A. It might be on the same sheet or it might even be on a different drawing sheet. Okay, but when you're working with architecture drawing especially, you will have a lot of details everywhere where you need to explain what's going on over here, what's going on with the foundation, what's going on. You might have a detail just right here trying to show what's going on in the wall. How is your insulation? What type of insulation you have? How are the studs going on? How you place the studs? So there's a lot of detail that cannot be shown in this drawing. So that's where you will be doing the removed section, where you just take a part of it and then point it up as a detail and blow up the scale. So that finishes this section view chapter. The next chapter that we'll be working with is going to be auxiliary views. So I will see you then. Thank you.